Hey 12, it's the Seahawks Squad, sponsored by Gametime. Everything Seattle Seahawks every week, breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from the Emerald City, the way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Get loud, 12s. The Seahawks Squad Show starts now.
Welcome into the Seahawks Squad Show. Anderson Hirst, Corbin Smith, and Robert Turbin are here with you as we prepare for game number 2 in the preseason. It's going to be a big one here against the Kansas City Chiefs. We're going to do a lot of stuff today. We're going to spend the majority of the episode breaking down kind of the run game concepts that Seattle is running, and especially what we saw in game 1 of the preseason against the Raiders. And what better two people than my two running back buddies to do that with Corbin Smith and Robert Turbin with you. So it's going to be a good one today. We're looking forward to tomorrow's game. I think we'll see some starters finally get some playing time, it sounds like, from Mike McDonald. So that's a positive sign. I think, we saw lots of positives from last Thursday's game, but a few, I don't want to say concerns, but just question marks going into game number 2. But I think one of the main differences that you can point out just from the first actual game footage of Clint Kubiak's offense was the commitment to the running game and the different concepts that were used to showcase the ability to run the football. And, I'm not someone who dives into the X's and O's very much. I leave that to Corbin Smith and Turbo as much as I possibly can. So I'm going to hand it off to these guys here. And we're just going to dive into the weeds for the first segment or two here into what we saw on Friday, what we've seen in practice, on Thursday, what we've seen in practice, and, what we can be looking forward to. We're going to talk about Ken Walker's injury, how much of that is precautionary, how much of that is there's something to be concerned there. And then we've spent so much time talking about the defense, the offense. I want to jump into some defensive stuff. What's going to be the biggest key for this group to truly be an elite defense, taking that just step up into year number 2 with Mike McDonald? But let's start with the run game, because I think almost any Seahawk fan was excited when they saw Robbie Oots there lead blocking for George Holani in the first half. And man, that was so fun to watch. Corbin, what just general terms, what stood out to you? Because I didn't get to talk to you post game after that game. I just want to get your thoughts on what stood out to you in terms of the offensive scheme, the commitment to the run game, and then of course the usage of the fullback.
It was just nice. Look, I know it's a preseason game, but it was nice to see an offensive coordinator that was trying to have an identity on offense. And it was very clear right out of the gate, we're going to go under center. I'm going to get my 275-pound fullback that's got trunks for calves. I'm going to put it into the backfield, and I'm going to mix up zone and gap schemes. And that was maybe the thing that I was most impressed with. Typically preseason, the word that gets thrown around is vanilla. And I loved the fact that we saw Seattle. Obviously, they did not use their entire playbook. Clint Kubiak's not going to do that in preseason, but we got to see a number of different types of zone concepts. We got to see some gaps concepts. In fact, both of their long runs from George Holani were on gap concepts in the first half in this game. And it was just really exciting to see that the prioritization they've put into the run game on the practice field, as Ken Walker III said like a week and a half ago, first time in his career that somebody's told him we're going to emphasize running the ball, and they're actually doing it. And you saw it on the game field, albeit in a preseason game. In fact, they went out and did it against a bunch of starters. I mean, the Raiders played, I'd say 85% of their starters in this game on offense and defense for at least a series. For Seattle to come out with mostly backups and do what they did running the football, allow them to get that play action game where Drew Lock could get out of the pocket and really showcase what they want this offense to be without completely opening up their playbook, I thought was incredibly impressive.
Yeah, I think we talked about it right after the game on our postcast or post-game show, you could say. That's something that stood out to us as well, just a commitment to the running game. And Turbo, do you still feel the same way? I know we've had time to digest it, but upon further review, do you still feel like, there's going to be a different style with this offense moving forward with the running game and commitment to the running back position?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the thing that we, should pay attention to is just the intentionality about it. Like they're so often, just like you said, Corbin, he's like, man, he's so surprised that not only are they saying they're going to commit to the run, but they actually are. Because what
Yeah.
happens in years past is, oh, it's not working in the first drive. It's not working in the second drive. Let's throw the run game out of the playbook. And we sort of abandon it or we ignore it, in games. I can remember a time, during the years that I was playing and Marshawn and I, we could be down 21-10 at halftime. And what do? We come out to start the second half running the football. We utilize the run game to get back into the game, even though we had a deficit going into the second half. And that's just being intentional about what you said, Anderson, identity. All right, I think you mentioned that. They have an identity of who they are as far as the ground game is concerned. So I think that's really the big elevation that we're going to see in terms of, man, who are the Seahawks? I think we've been asking that question now for a couple years, even though they've had a little bit of success. I think the way that they approach the preseason is giving us a good idea of who they're going to be all season.
Yeah, I think if that continues, and of course, it's one thing to do in the preseason, as Corbin mentioned, but then if you continue to do that when you're facing adversity in the regular season, that's going to be something that I think we can look forward to seeing this year from a Clint Kubiak coached offense. Just before we really dive into it, Corbin, I know you're a big X's and O's guys, especially with the running game here. Can you just, for people like me who don't necessarily know the differences between a gap scheme and a zone scheme? You mentioned a lot of, the big runs that happen on Thursday were actually in a gap scheme. And I think we've known that Clint Kubiak is going to be more of a zone scheme. Explain the differences between the two and, what kind of goes into formulating an offensive plan for the Seattle Seahawks and a Clint Kubiak coached offense. Oh. Did I lose Corbin? Turbo, can I ask you the same thing? Do you know what the difference between them is?
Yeah, of course.
Of course.
Gap scheme is basically man on man. It's a man blocking, type of scheme. You've got this person. I've got that person. That's what it is. A zone concept is an area. You're blocking an area, and as soon as you come into that area, you're mine. And so we are all moving sort of in unison, to go in one direction to get to an area and then get up into the second level. So that's really what because the reason why it's an area type of block is because, like, you hear oftentimes, you get a double team at the line of scrimmage and then boom, an offensive lineman, a guard is going to release up to, the linebacker. Well, sometimes it's the center that does that, or sometimes it's the tackle. So it just depends on how it's blocked, how it's being defended, who's going. It's not like you're always the guy that releases up to the linebacker. It just depends on how it maps out that play. So, the gap scheme is man on man. The zone scheme is area.
Okay, thank you for that, Corbin. We were just discussing the differences between the zone and gap
I'm in a
scheme.
hotel, and sometimes it just kicks me off. So I
apologize. All good. But considering the kind of jump onto what Turbo talked about there, I know you were mentioning that you actually were surprised that the gap scheme is where a lot of the bigger runs came from, especially in that first half on Thursday's game. I think most Seahawks fans have heard that Clint Kubiak usually leans toward more of a zone scheme. Is that something that you can bounce back and forth between? Is it like just the running game and the passing game where you usually commit to one, or is it something where you want to be good at all different types?
I think you have to. It's kind of like the entire offense. You do have to have an identity, and Clint Kubiak's offense has historically, this is stemming from the Shanahan scheme.
Yep.
It has historically been a wide zone centric offense. That's the bread and butter. That's what they want to be able to run. But I can say this as somebody, even at the high school level, being a play caller, you have to look at who you're playing against too. You've got to consider the types of fronts that you're going to be facing, and you have to consider who you're game playing against. If I'm playing against a team that's got a couple of real game wreckers that are playing in the interior, I'm actually going to be feeling better about doing a zone run game because I'm not sure that I can get those guys knocked off the ball doing gap stuff. If I'm playing a team where it feels like they're really good at setting the edge, but I have some questions about their vulnerability up the gut, then I'm going to sprinkle in more of those gap schemes. And it felt like this was, even in a preseason game, it felt like Clint Kubiak kind of as the game got going was like, well, you know what? The way that they're playing these fronts, we're just going to go downhill at them. And even when they went outside, the toss sweep that was a touchdown for George Halani, that was blocked as a gap scheme up front. And we got to see the fullback leading out there and taking the safety off the edge. And then they had a wraparound block on that play from Anthony Bradford as well. A fold block is what most people call it, from the right guard position. And some would say, well, that looks like a counter, but you have to see what the rest of the line's blocking like. They weren't blocking to the opposite direction. It was a downhill play. So it did feel like it was kind of, I got the sense Clint Kubiak, and maybe Turbo agrees with this watching it, but it did feel almost like, even in a preseason game, that Clint Kubiak was wanting to flex a little bit. Like, we are going to make sure that you feel us in this game. We are going to be physical up front. We're going to go let Robbie Oots go get people. We're going to let Gray Zabel eat up. We're going to let Anthony Bradford knock guys off the ball. Even Jalen Sundell had a couple pancakes in this game. They let their offensive linemen play more of that physical, just get out of your stance and just go maul people style. I don't think they're going to do that a ton in Clint Kubiak's offense, but I've seen it on the practice field too. This could be a situation where the personnel plays out where Kubiak is leaning more like a 60-40 rather than a 70-30 when you're looking zone versus gap.
Yeah. Well, I think when most people think about the scheme changes, and, we're talking gap versus zone schemes, and, there's a couple other differences in there as well. They think about the blocking, and it's more just like, all right, where do you go, where the offensive lineman goes, and now where does the fullback go? But Turbo, for you guys, for the running backs, what adjustments do you have to make when you are making those in-game adjustments between, say, a gap and a zone scheme? So I know it can be different in the blocking side of things, but for someone who's carrying the football, how does that change for you guys?
Your read changes, your steps at the snap of the football changes. But after that, it's just about discipline. It's discipline A to B, and then you just be yourself after that. You got to be disciplined with your eyes in terms of what you're reading and who you're reading and how you're reading it, and trust what you see. You get coached to do that all the time as a runner, and boom, once you see an open gap, man, hit it. I think that there's comfortability having a mix. I think it's best to have a mix of zone and gap scheme. I think that you can create an identity doing both. I think that the piece that's important is having those 2 or 3 core runs. Mm-hmm. And so 2 of those might be zone plays and 1 might be a gap, or vice versa. But if you're a team that's going to do multiple, which is, outside zone, inside zone, run a counter, run the trap, run a duo play and things of that nature. I think the more the merry, and then you communicate with your runner in terms of what they like to do best. And that's how you can create your core 3 or 4 runs that you consistently like to open up the game with when you need, 3 or 4 yards on a third down. Like, these are the core runs that we have in our game plan that our offense feels really comfortable with. Sometimes those are zone schemes, sometimes they're man. I think some schemes get boxed when it's like, man, we are 100%, zoned. Like, when you get to that 80-20 zone gap, it's hard for me to see a run game having a lot of success with that. Now, Shanahan might, say something different because he was outside zone left and right, his entire coaching career. But those mix, the mix, I think, is a great balance, for a team like the Seahawks.
Do you change your play? Go ahead, Corbin.
I would just add on to this that, and I think for some teams, if you have multiple backs that you are mixing in, I think that you can have 2 different sets of. And
that was what I was going to ask. Do you change your play calling depending on what running back is in?
Yeah, and I think the Seahawks might be a team that have that working for them here, because Ken Walker III, I think, is an outstanding fit to be running these zone plays, as long as he doesn't get too bounce happy. That's the biggest issue that he's had as a pro. But zone schemes, you can get away with that a little bit more. I know when I had running backs and I was coaching them, and I remember this as a player, like, if I'm calling power and you bounce power, I'm pulling you out of the game. Like, you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. So,
well, what if the outside linebacker spills it though, Corp?
This isn't a video game. No, you're correct, Turbo.
They're going there with the odd shoulder because they purposely want to force the power to get outside.
Yeah, I think sometimes you're right on that in a sense that like teams do try to make you do that, but there's a reason they're trying to make you do that. So I think that it could be something where your eyes can deceive you a little bit too in terms of what's actually there. And it happens, you know this from playing, it happens so dang fast too that it can make it a little bit tricky. But maybe it was just me with high school kids, but like it drove me nuts if they're like, I'm going to try to outrun people to the outside on this. And it's like, no, I've got my guard coming over here from the other side, or I've got my play side if I'm running power G. Like, you follow what you're supposed to run there, because that was a play 99% of the time. If you spilled it, even against high school kids, the results just weren't there. I guess the point I'm trying to make here is there's more of a strict discipline in terms of where you are going on your gap plays, where the running back's supposed to track, whereas zone is much more organic in terms of your vision's going to tell you and what the defense reacts to. Like, you had to pay attention. A lot of zone schemes, you're looking at the 3-tech or 1-tech, depending, sometimes the 5-tech if you're on an outside zone, and you're reading what those guys are doing. And we used to drill like crazy, having dummies, and you had to read those dummies to make your cut. So your vision, you have to trust a lot more. So I guess the point I'm trying to make here is that you could have two backs on your team that I think Zach Charbonnet can run both, but I really love him in gap schemes and just let him get downhill. George Halani, I think, is a really good gap runner. And he's a guy that breaks a lot of tackles, has good vision, but he's really a guy just, get to the gap and just let him go. So I think you can have different play packages that, 2 or 3 bread and butter plays that you run with different running backs, and your offensive line can handle that because they're going to be doing more than 2 or 3 plays in the run game.
So not a completely different playbook, but you lean one way versus another way with exactly. whoever's in.
Sean Payton did that in New Orleans, and he's doing it in Denver now too. And he has been a master at that over the years.
So Turbo, did they do that with you and Marshawn?
No, Marshawn and I had a similar style in terms of running the football. So I could run the entire playbook, and so could Marshawn.
Okay, good. And I'm going to follow up with that. Do you see that being a case here in Seattle now with Ken, with Zach Charbonnet, and you throw in George Halani and possibly Jacardia Wright is there as well?
I really do think so, because the thing with Ken Walker that's important is that you don't want him to all of a sudden get back into these old habits in terms of trying to get everything outside.
Yeah.
And so, in order to help him with his discipline, I think those gap schemes are going to help. You got to stay tight in the A gap, man. You got to, Corbin talked about the track, man. The track is the most important part, to a run scheme as soon as the ball is snapped, both in the gap and a zone scheme, because if you're not on the track, it can just throw everything off, and you can lose your vision a little bit. You can miss the hole in terms of like after you get the ball where you're supposed to hit it. And so, man, you get Ken Walker going north and south, not a lot of people in the NFL catching him, man. And so, yes, he can run the outside zone. He's got great speed to get around the edge, but we want to see Ken Walker planting that foot and get downhill. And so I think, he'll practice some patience and be able to get involved in some of those gap schemes as well.
Yeah, well, I want to come back after the break, and I want to talk about, we're talking about establishing the run here, and with the schemes that are working for Seattle in terms of their first preseason game, at least. Hopefully that continues. I want to talk about how that affects the passing game, because everyone says, the run opens up the pass opens up the runs, et cetera, et cetera. I want to break down exactly what that means, how much that can help Sam Darnold, someone who's had one good year in the NFL, but previously had some struggles. So I want to kind of ask how that kind of commitment to the running game specifically will help a quarterback that's still trying to kind of get his career going on the right path. On the SEAHAWKS Squad Show, we'll be right back after this timeout. This episode is brought to you by Yahoo Fantasy. It's the best time of the year. NFL kickoff is almost here, and that means fantasy football season is back in full swing. And this year, Yahoo Fantasy is turning things up with a fantasy football experience like never before. This year, me and the SEAHAWKS Squad Show are playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first-timer or a veteran making your millionth league. What I love about Yahoo Fantasy is the app. Sometimes you're forced to draft on the go. It's happened to me a couple times, and when I'm using other apps, it's really kind of janky, to be honest. But with Yahoo Fantasy, it's super easy. You can kind of line up and queue who you want to pick on your team. And it makes it like you basically have your full setup back at home. So big fan of the Yahoo Fantasy app. And to celebrate 28 years of fantasy football greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days through August. To kick it off, they just dropped Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine Leagues, a killer new way to play fantasy football on Yahoo, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated each week until there's only one team left standing. With the season just around the corner, it's now time to get your league together and give this mode a new try. If you're more into the classics, you can still play head-to-head, private leagues, or join a public league. Stay tuned more for killer announcements and start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football now at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. Welcome back to the Seahawks Squad Show. Anderson Hirst. I got Robert Turbin, Turbo with me, and of course, Corbin Smith from Locked On Seahawks is joining us. We're breaking down the running game. I got kind of really good insight last segment on, the differences between the gap and the zone scheme, what that means for different running backs, what that means kind of over the course of a game. But I want to talk about how it affects the passing game, because I think it's going to be a huge factor into how successful this offense is. If you're a commitment to the run game and it works, great, but you still have to have some balance. And I think Sam Darnold is one of those QBs where if you play complementary football, and we hear that term so much, I want to ask you guys what that really means. Corbin, what does complementary football actually mean? And how can, if you open up the run game, how specifically does that help the passing game? And in the Seahawks case specifically, what are we looking at?
Yeah, for me, I don't think that there is a textbook definition in terms of what percentages look like in terms of complementary football. Like, I've seen teams that throw the ball 65% of the time, but that 35% of the time they run the football, they are effective and they get the job done. And it takes pressure off the quarterback. It takes pressure off of the offensive line. I've seen teams that are in more of closer to a 50-50 range that really lean on the run game. Baltimore, when he had a running quarterback, those are teams that can do that, where they're going to have more of a 50-50 thing where those two things are feeding off each other. But I think when you look from Seattle's perspective, and just with Clint Kubiak's offense, and this is coming from my film study watching him in Minnesota back in 2021, what he did in New Orleans last year, especially in the games where he had most of his players healthy. It was a lot different. He had to really cut down on what he was doing when he was playing 7th string guards and 15th string receivers. It felt like that's where they got to last year. So looking at when he had a healthy lineup, both in Minnesota and in New Orleans, the thing that I really noticed, he didn't have very high play action rates, which was kind of surprising to me. But what they were able to do is they were able to run a ton of under center, just straight drop back passing, which that is a West Coast staple. And a lot of teams don't do very much of that anymore. There has been a concerted effort to do that on the practice field. We saw it some in that first preseason game, not a ton, but just a little bit of a taste. But it allows you to be able to run those type of plays where teams, when you get into I form, they're worried about, oh man, they're just going to hand it off and Robbie Oots is going to go smack somebody. They're going to run it right down our throats. But you can have those straight drop backs with two backs where they're bringing an extra guy up in the box. And now, hey, look, I got a guy running deep because you guys don't have that extra safety back there. Or in the case for the Seahawks, all three of their quarterbacks are, I would say, if you're looking at percentiles, they are all 90th percentile or better throwers on the run. All three of these guys are really good on bootlegs. And that's, throwing out to their right or rolling out, throwing against their body on the left side. I think Sam Darnold, we saw that touchdown that beat the Seahawks last year. That was an incredible throw in the rain. Yeah. He was throwing across his body, rolling out to his left under duress. I think he's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL at making those throws. Even when he was not playing well in New York, those were the plays that stood out as positives for me. So you've got 3 QBs. Drew Lock had a couple really nice throws on rollouts on Thursday's game we've seen in the practice field. And Jalen Milroe, like, if you're not running him outside on bootlegs, that's criminal malpractice as a play caller, because that puts so much strain on outside defenders. Like, do I run up and try to get to him? Because otherwise he's going to outrun me to the edge. Oh, now there's a guy running across on a crossing route and I left him wide open. Like, it puts so much strain on the defenders that are in no man's land. Whereas, Sam Darnold and Drew Lock are mobile enough that they can run, but they're more of rolling out to pass. And having a run game that is multifaceted, where you do have zone and you have gap schemes, and they're both effective, really opens up not just the regular play action drop backs, but those bootlegs that last year when Seattle tried to run them, Geno Smith was getting gobbled up because teams had absolutely no respect for their ground game.
Yeah.
And the one that jumps out to me, Giants game, when Brian Burns, I think it was 4th and 2, Brian Burns is like, I don't care if you faked a handoff. You're not going to run the ball there. I'm going to go right after Geno, and smacked it. There's nothing the QB can do. He couldn't even get out into his rollout. So that's where that run game comes into play to create that complementary style when you're talking about more of a West Coast-oriented offense like the one that Clint Kubiak wants to run.
Turbin, what about you? What does complementary football look like, and how will it look for the Seahawks? Does Sam Darnold need a good running game to be a successful quarterback? Because there's some quarterbacks who don't.
Well, that's true, but he absolutely does. I mean, if this offense is going to be put all on his shoulders, I don't know how far offensively the Seahawks are going to be able to go this season. But complementary football, to me, I look at all three phases of the game. Maybe offensively you're struggling, so you got to win the field position game. You got to put the defense in position, be able to continue to get stops, at some point, so that the offense at some point can get some points. It's like, man, I remember, when we were even with Russ and Doug, and I mean, we had some offensive struggles. Corbin, you remember, we used to always in the first half, for whatever reason, I don't know, and it was
a lot of games. It felt like you guys didn't get off the bus until after halftime. I wasn't a reporter at that point, like not a paid one, at least. I was doing stuff like in Indiana, but I remember like the Bucks game is the one that immediately jumps out to me. Like,
yes,
I think it was 21-3, and then the second half is like, oh wait, we actually have to try to play now. We're gonna get our offense going.
But it would be a key stop, to avoid 24-3 before half. And it was just, it's those things. Maybe you steal an extra possession. I mean, you can't really do a surprise onside kick now, but, you steal an extra possession that way, on special teams, or maybe, Tyler Lockett or Leon Washington even might take one to the house, on a kickoff return. So that, to me, is where the complementary football comes into play, where everybody in all three phases is kind of counted on to make plays, especially if there's one group not doing well.
Yeah, I think hopefully that's something we see with the Seahawks. And it's not like, I love, Turbo, what you said. It's not just about the offense. It's about all three phases, right? You can get help from other parts of the game. Whether
if your defense can't get stops, like, it puts you in a position you can't run the ball.
Right.
Yes. So right. That's where the complementary piece is.
Turbo's 100% correct on that.
Yeah, but the complementary piece is on offense. Hey, it's a shootout today. We've had games like that where it was just like, something's going on with the LOB tonight. So it's a shootout. That's how we're gonna win tonight. And that's complementary football. It doesn't matter like which phase may be on the struggle bus that night. The others have to step up and pick up the slack. Yeah. And that's complementary, man. And in terms of just, keeping it on the offensive side of the football, run game, passing game, I mean, it's very simple. If you got a run game going and you can just slip, get a little play action. I mean, some of these linebackers are so aggressive, man. I mean, you watch the tape, they're down at the line of scrimmage and the running back doesn't even have a football. And it just creates all of this open space for the tight ends and some of these in-breaking routes. And even safeties are keying in, trying to dive down into the run game, and that's when you get those deep shots, over the top. And so, man, it's a huge factor.
Really quick before we head to break, I want to get your guys' quick thoughts on two players. Number one, Ken Walker. Is there any sort of injury concern there, or is this mainly precautionary, keeping him in bubble wrap till the season starts? Corbin, I'll start with you.
I'm really curious on Turbo's thought on this, because obviously I did not play anywhere close to the level that you did, Robert. But I remember, like, for me, I like to get hit at least a little bit before the start of the season, because, like, just going into week one where I've just been playing mostly non-padded practices, like, that wouldn't have computed with me anyway. But a different style runner. I was between the tackles. Like, I'm not outrunning guys very often type guy. But I'm just curious how this is going to play out with Ken Walker, because we did see him in a padded practice earlier this week, which that was only the second one he had the entire camp. And they played him for a handful of snaps, and they're like, okay, he had a nice run, a nice screen, and then you didn't see him the rest of the practice. Like, it literally was like, we're just going to make sure he's okay, and then we're good to go. I'm not concerned about Ken Walker III necessarily, but I guess I kind of have a little bit of skepticism about his readiness to go against Fred Warner and that 49ers defense in week 1, and wondering, like, are they doing a disservice to him by holding him back this much in terms of injuries? Like, there's some data out there that is, like, we're talking 20 years of data. It's not 5 minutes. Like, there's a lot of data that suggests that these guys getting hit a little bit actually limits the injuries in the regular season. So for a guy like him, I get the precautionary nature, but it is kind of a curiosity, I guess, for me, like trying to figure out what that right balance is, even with a running back in the NFL.
So is he on the injured list for this game? Just want to double check.
No, he's not. Basically,
he hasn't been practicing though.
They basically what they're doing is
Tuesday.
He did, and then he didn't practice the next day. Like, they literally have just it's almost like there was 3 straight days he didn't practice earlier in camp because Mike McDonald said, his foot's bothering him just a little bit, but nothing to worry about. Same thing that was bothering him in OTAs. And then I think it's stemming from late last season. So, like, from that perspective, I do have, like, I'm not going to say I'm concerned, but it is something that I'm at least thinking about a little bit, just because I'm just wondering, like, when the real bullets start flying, is that something that's going to flare up really quick for him? Or is he more vulnerable? Like, because he's had a lot of injuries since he's been in the league. So I think there's some questions there.
Yeah, no doubt. I am concerned, to answer your question, Anderson. And I'm gonna save like my entire thoughts just because there's a couple things that I want to confirm first.
Okay.
But you guys, I'm very, like, when it comes to running backs, scouting them at the combine out of college, and I'm very in tune with the position. I'm like really, really deep. And I watched Ken. I watched him on Tuesday, full pads. Coach McDonald called it the best practice of camp by the team. And I watched him. I watched him. I watched him very closely. I watched his body language, everything. I'm concerned.
Okay.
I am concerned. Right. I'll leave it at that.
Okay. We'll wait to hear more. And if there's, maybe he ends up playing a little bit, like maybe a series or two. I wouldn't expect it in this game, to be honest.
Anders, they've just, to me, the way this has gone down, like, he looked really good when he was in there on Tuesday. But I just, like, this is especially from a contract standpoint, like, there's a lot of people wondering if they're going to pay him. I'm like, I'm not paying a running back that is missing 75% of practices in training camp just because we're worried something might happen. Like, I don't want to do that, personally. So I understand, like, what Robert's saying in terms of concern. Like, I think that he could still be a dynamic playmaker out there, but I don't know that it's been kind of fishy the way that things have been done this offseason.
I've never felt like this about Ken before. And like you said, Corby, he looked good. He looked good in practice on Tuesday. But I've seen him look at a different level than even that, and so that's where I'm like, you all right, bro? Like, really, so I don't know. That's my dog. That's why I'm like, I'm gonna hit him up and see, like, tap in, and
maybe there's something going on that we don't know, or whatever, Yeah.
And if that's the case, then you understand why the Seahawks are doing what they're doing, but that just creates more concern. Like, okay, so how much is he going to be available once we get to the real games?
Yeah. Yep. Second one, super quick if we can, because we're already late for a break here. But Jamie Martinez, I didn't see as much as I thought I would on Thursday. I know I talked a little bit about you with this Turbo after the game. Corbin, I didn't get to talk to you. What did we see him for one series? That was a little odd to me.
Yeah, he just did not look like the same back I've seen in the practice field. He was very tentative, I've never seen him run the ball like that. So I don't know if it was just first NFL game jitters or what, and then they tried to put him as a kick returner that he's never done before, and he muffed one of those opportunities. Like, I am worried about the fact that he has absolutely no special teams experience. Like Jay Harbaugh was saying, well, guys that are football players, they'll figure it out. But like, it's not like he's been tackling guys. He's been a running back. That is something that's concerning me. And George Halani is a top 5 special teams player on this team. Like, George Halani will go down and deck dudes. Like, he's just a football player. He's really good in pass pro. He catches like a receiver. You see it on the practice field. Like, I've changed my tune a little bit with seeing these guys side by side. I still like Damian Martinez a lot, but I'm just like, George Halani to me looks like he's a much better football player, at least at this point, is what I'm seeing. I'd be much more confident with having him out there playing on Sundays right now than Damian. If he can start playing with the speed and the instincts we've seen before in the second preseason game, then maybe he starts to shake his way back into things. But not being able to contribute on special teams is kind of a little bit of a red flag to me.
Yeah, it's a big deal. It's key. You know, you got to be able to get out there on punt, kickoff. I mean, that's just part of being the third, fourth string running back, you know, and that a lot of times is the deciding factor in making the team, you know. So he's got a couple more opportunities, Damian Martinez, and we'll see what he does with it.
All right. That's good. We'll kind of wrap up the offensive discussion here. We'll come back. We'll talk a little bit about the defense. I want to know what's going to be the biggest factor to kind of really take this defense over the top. I think we're all pretty encouraged by what we saw, especially the second half of the year last year. But what one aspect do you think needs to take a step up for this defense to be truly elite? We'll talk about that on the other side. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can't end up leaving money on the table. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch Money does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. And that's what I love about Monarch Money personally. Like, I'm someone who I'm not organized. I'm just not a very organized person. I have stuff everywhere. I have multiple schedules. So having something that kind of keeps track of my money for me, and I'm A, not organized, and B, not just a financial guru like a lot of my friends are. So having Monarch Money control and organize my money and two things that I'm not good at is awesome. And I think it's an excellent product. Don't let your financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNFL. Welcome back to Seahawks Squad Show. Anderson Hirst, Robert Turbin is with us, and Corbin Smith from Locked On Seahawks is joining us today. We had a big, extensive offensive breakdown, kind of went over a little bit of our concerns with both Ken Walker and Damian Martinez in the earlier segments. If you missed that, go ahead and rewind. You can still catch what we're about to talk about now, which is the defense. I know everyone's really been focusing on the offense in terms of this preseason and this training camp, and deservedly so. It's the thing with the most changes. It's the thing that had the most issues last year that you want to see those differences in. But I still want to spend a little bit of time on the defense here. What is the one aspect of Mike McDonald's defense that needs to take a step up for this defense to truly be elite? And I think we saw stretches of it especially in the second half of last year. I think they were a top 3 scoring defense from week 9 on or something like that. So it's
week 11.
Week 11. Okay, that was the aspect that I was looking at there. But Turbo, I'll start with you. Where do you feel about this defense now? Do you think it's a top 5 defense? Do you think it's a top 3 defense? Do you think it's top 10 defense? And then what area do you think it needs to improve the most to be a truly elite defense? As you were a part of one of the best defenses of all time, not that you played defense, but you were on that team.
Yeah. I wouldn't put them in the top 5 or the top 10 even now. I mean, we ain't played no games yet.
Yeah.
That's so right. You know, let's go play some games, you know, and then see where the because if you're top 10, that means you're elite. So then you're telling me we have an elite defense. I think that still needs to be proven, to be honest with you. The thing that I would like to see is when you step onto the field and you play the Seattle Seahawks defense, you know it's going to be pretty tough to run the football on this defense. That's what I want. That's elite. Like when it's like, man, it's gonna be hard to run the football against these guys. Okay, when I see that, then we can talk about this defense being, top 7, top 5, top defense. And I think DeMarcus Lawrence helps with that because there was a lot of indiscipline in terms of setting the edge last season with some of our young edge rushers and things of that nature. I think he'll bring some of that experience, from that standpoint. I like what we have in the middle, and we'll get some of our guys like Murphy that'll take the next steps in their careers and things of that nature. And we'll see how our linebackers perform, man. But it's going to be about stopping the run, man. It's just like, man, you step like we used to, when we played Patrick Willis and those boys, Navarro, it's like, we knew it was going to be a tough time running the football against these guys. And we just had to continue to just throw those body blows for 3 quarters until we can finally break some big ones. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so I think for Seattle to be an elite defense and take that next step, I think we got playmakers on the outside, intercepting the football and forcing fumbles. And I think we got pretty good pass rushers in terms of being able to get to the quarterback, man. We got to stop the run. I mean, it's got to be like very difficult to run the ball against the Seahawks. And then to me, that would elevate them into an elite squad.
Okay. Corbin, where do you feel this defense is kind of after the tail end of last year, leading into this year? And then what do you think needs to improve to be an elite defense?
Yeah, Turbo's right that it's a new year. You got to go out and prove yourself. Sure. But like, if this is not a top 5 defense with all the returning players that they've got and the couple of additions they've made, to me, that's a monumental failure. I mean, unless you have a ton of injuries, knock on wood, hope that does not happen. But like, this is a team that's got 13 of their 14 players had the most snaps last year. They're back. And this was a top 3 scoring defense for really the entire second half of the season. So you have all those guys back. It's year 2 in Mike McDonald's defense. Now he's going to really be able to be the mad scientist for these guys. So like, the expectations are where they're at for a reason. With that being said, I'm going to piggyback a little bit off of what Turbo said, but instead of just saying this is about the run game, I don't know how many times McDonald's talked about it this offseason into training camp. A lot of it stemmed from conversations about getting Byron Murphy the second more opportunities to rush the passer. But what that boils down to is doing better on first and second down, particularly first down. A lot of that is the run game where you're giving up too many yards on that first play, and it's just opening the playbook up for the other team. They've got to be better on first down. That was even an issue in a couple of their losses. I mean, Green Bay was getting really good yardage on first downs consistently in that game. Minnesota was doing the same thing. You have got to improve on first down. And if they can do that, there's going to be that ripple effect where Byron Murphy II, who was a top 8 defensive tackle in pressure rate last year, he's going to get enough opportunities. He can start turning those into quarterback hits and sacks because he's capable of doing that. We know Leonard Williams can. We know Jaron Reed can do that. And DeMarcus Lawrence coming in, we know he can do that. All the edge guys they have are going to feed off that, but they have got to be better on first down. I think adding DeMarcus Lawrence to this mix, a year older Byron Murphy II, I think the pieces are there. Nick Eamon is going to help with that too, playing what he is kind of like that edge safety role that he's going to be playing. They've got the pieces in place to be better on first down and then have a ripple effect there that's going to help their pass rush. But that to me is the biggest thing that they're going to have to improve on from last year to truly secure themselves as a top 5 caliber defense in the National Football League.
Yeah. Maybe it's an easy answer for me, but I got to see a more effective rush of the passer this year. And I know you had a lot of your edge guys out. Chenna was out for most of last year. You're getting DeMarcus Lawrence to come help with that. I want to see more from Boye Mafe as well. But I think if you're gonna be an elite defense, you have an elite pass rush. That's kind of one of the first things that you have. And I don't think the Seahawks have a bad pass rush by any means, but I want to see that take a jump up into the upper echelon coming to this year. I love what you said about Byron Murphy too, because that's something where I almost feel like the analytics nerds really like him and what he was able to do last year, and kind of maybe the more old school production matters guys were like, dude, you got to be better. You're a first round pick, right? So I guess where do you guys stand on Byron Murphy? Did he have a good year in 2024? Do you expect him to kind of take that next step up in this next year? Turbo, I'll start with you.
Yeah, of course. You expect guys to get better each year, and everybody's development is different, So that I think Byron Murphy had a good season last year. He
Okay.
did. Maybe the expectations were higher,
Yeah.
but his progression is his progression, man. Some guys don't really get it until like year 5. Sometimes that's just their progression. I mean, think about some of the quarterbacks that have had these like resurgences. Sam Darnold is one of them. Sometimes it just clicks at a different time for you, And so for Byron, man, you just got to stay the course, man. You hope that all the things that he's doing, like off the field, in preparation, the day-to-day, taking care of his body, the nutrition, you hope that he's doing all of those things correctly, because that plays a part in terms of your performance. As long as he's doing that and he's being consistent in those things, man, the development is just going to come over time for him. So I would continue to be patient in his development.
Corbin?
I thought he had a really good year. I don't care about the individual stats. I'll throw out a stat for you. The 3 games that Byron Murphy II didn't play in, the Seahawks gave up 173 rushing yards per game. They were a totally different defense when he wasn't out there. Teams were gashing them on the ground. And he was playing a lot of nose tackle for this team last year because he's kind of a short, squatty guy. He holds up well leverage-wise. He's still going to play there some, but Mike McDonald's talked about it. And again, it goes off what I just said a few minutes ago, that you got to be better on early downs to create more opportunities so that he can use his athleticism to go get after people. Because the pass rush win rate is there. The pressure rate is there. You just aren't getting enough reps for him to really be able to pin his ears back. And look, this guy has pass rushing ability. It's just trying to turn it into the sacks and the quarterback hits. That's going to be the big thing to watch here for the Seattle Seahawks with Byron Murphy II. But I thought he had a much better year than his individual stats will note. And the Seahawks, the way they played without him, showed that.
Okay, prove me wrong. I love it. I'm rooting to be wrong here, guys. Well done. When we come back from this quick break, we're going to kind of break down. We're going to do our Predict the Future segment, as we always do to end the show. I'm going to ask you guys what you think the NFC West standings will turn out to be in 2025. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back to the SEAHAWKS Squad Show. Anderson Hirst here with Corbin Smith and Turbo, Robert Turbin, Super Bowl 48 champion, former Seahawks running back. Really appreciate you guys hanging out with us once again today. It's time for our Predict the Future segment. We don't have Nostradamus Chris with us today, so we might just have to go kind of shooting by the hip, and I'm going to go, where do we think the NFC West standings will end up after this year in 2025? Corbin Smith, I'll start with you.
This is a division that I think is kind of tricky because there's a couple storylines here that are kind of festering a little bit. One of them is Matthew Stafford and his health in LA. And if Matthew Stafford is not right, the Rams could go from being a team that's a borderline Super Bowl contender to being a 5 or 6 win team. Jimmy Garoppolo might be able to get him to 7 or 8 wins, but I think that's a big drop off if you don't have a healthy Matthew Stafford out there. I've got questions about that with him being in his being in that big gray pill, the silver pill they showed the other day. That maybe that's going to help him, but I don't know. I've got some real questions there. The Rams are if Matthew Stafford is right, the Rams can very easily win this division again. They've got playmakers on defense, especially up front. Jared Verse looks like he's going to be an absolute superstar.
Yep.
They added Devontae Adams on offense. I still think Devontae Adams is a really good receiver. Maybe not a top 10 guy anymore, but him and Puka Nacua together are going to contrast really well. I think that the Stafford thing, though, is hovering over them. San Francisco, look, if they're able to keep their vets healthy, that is a very big if. That's a team that could win 10 or 11 games again. But I'm not holding my breath. They're going to do it. And you're asking a lot of young guys to pick up slack with so many other players that have left in the last couple of years. And they're having some injuries to some of those guys. And you're not going to have Brandon Ayuk back till at least the 6th game, probably. Their receiving core is decimated from injuries and free agent losses, trading away Deebo Samuel. I have some skepticism about them being a legitimate 10-win team because there's so many question marks. If everything goes right, they absolutely could be. Arizona, I'm to the point with Arizona, I'm tired of it every year. Every single year, Arizona is going to take a big step. until Kyler Murray does, I don't see that team being a legitimate contender in the NFC West. Like, I think it's set up well for the Seahawks with their defense, and their offense doesn't have to be a top 10 offense. Like, don't turn the ball over. Let your defense win games for you by not making a ton of mistakes. Run the football well. You're well coached. I think Mike McDonald already is proving that he is a really good football coach. I think in this year we're going to really see it. To me, the Seahawks, I'm not saying that it is win the division or bust. Like, if they get a wild card or whatever, great. But like, it feels like there's a chance that this division could be very winnable for them, because I think all three of the other teams, especially if Stafford is not Matthew Stafford or he's not able to play, like, I think that is a real buzzkill to the Rams' chances if that ends up being an issue looming into the season.
Yeah, so it's weird. I hear Corbin describe that, and it's weird to say that a team that traded away its starting quarterback, fired its offensive coordinator, traded away its top receiver, got rid of its third best receiver in Tyler Lockett. Just longer tenured receiver, I should say. That it has the least amount of question marks out of all the teams in the division, which is weird to say. But Turbo, do you think the Seahawks have a good chance to win AL West? NFC West?
You just watch too much baseball, buddy.
I do.
Chances are there's still a chance, or there's always a chance, I guess you could say. I'm going to, navigate my prediction assuming full health for everybody, for every team.
Okay. That's fair. I think that's fair.
Yeah. No concerns about Matthew Stafford. The LA Rams are number one. No concerns about, Kenneth Walker III or anything like that. The Seahawks are coming in second place.
Okay.
The 49ers and then the Cardinals. Okay. And so, for me, I just think that the Seahawks are going to be a better team than the 49ers. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that their defense is not going to be the type of defense that we have known the 49ers to be over the last 4 or 5 years. I think offensively, they'll still be able to make some plays because you got George Kittle and you got, Christian McCaffrey. I even like Jawan Jennings a lot, and obviously Shanahan is a very, very intelligent, high IQ play caller. He'll put them in position to be able to score points, but will they be able to stop anybody? And that's the big question mark for me. I believe the Seahawks are going to be able to stop people, and Sam Darnold is going to be able to give them just enough to be able to kind of, get them over the hump. So, for me, it's assuming all health, it's Rams, Seahawks, Niners, and Cardinals in that order.
All right, Corbin, what's your 1 through 4?
I'm going to go Seahawks, Rams, 49ers, Cardinals. So the only difference for Turbo and I think, look, if the Rams, he's going to go without injuries. I just can't ignore Matthew Stafford's thing right now. I can't. Even if that impacts only the first couple games for them, this could be a very thin margin for error, because I think those two teams, like last year at the end of the year, I think they're very close in terms of overall talent. I do. And I think the coaching, I think Mike McDonald and Sean McVay are both really good coaches, and they do different sides of the ball. But I think that the margin between those two teams is still pretty tight. And so it all things equal otherwise, I do think losing your quarterback for a couple of games, or him not being right for a couple of games, could cost them a few of those games. That might come back to bite them. I think Seattle's defense gets them to the top, but I agree with Turbo. I think San Francisco is probably around a 500 team, maybe a little under that type level, because I do have questions about the defense. I have questions about the consistency on offense. And then their best players, a lot of them are getting old. Can they stay healthy? That's going to be a big issue in Arizona until they prove it. I've seen Kyler Murray start fast, and then second half. Look, I know it is a low hanging fruit, but I don't know if there's a new update on Call of Duty in the second half or what happened, but he just is a different player after week 7 or week 8. He's just a different player, and he's done it for 5 years. I need to see him step up to really consider Arizona a threat in this division.
Yeah. I'm going to go Seahawks 1. I am going to pick the Cardinals 2. I think they do finally take that step up this year. I see what you're saying, Corbin. I'm gonna get burned by it this year. I think Kyler Murray does take that step up, because I believe in that talent so much, and I actually think Jonathan Gannon's a really good coach as well. He's got that defense. The NFC West might be the best coached division in football. I'm trying to think of other
AFC
divisions.
West.
AFC West is up there for sure.
I think the two Western divisions.
Yeah, maybe NFC North. We'll see how Ben Johnson does in Chicago to kind of really help that one out as well. But yeah, for me, NFC West and AFC West are probably the two best divisions coached in football. So I honestly like Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, Mike McDonald, and Jonathan Gannon. Like that's a really good foursome there. But I do think that Arizona finally takes that step up and becomes a playoff team this year. LA, and then I got San Francisco in last place. I just think they take a massive step back. There's going to be questions about what's going on with there. They just gave a ton of money to Brock Purdy. I don't know if that's legit because he doesn't have the same playmakers as he did the last couple of years. We'll see if Christian McCaffrey comes back from his injury, really that same player. And I just have too many question marks for them. And what you said, Turbo, about them being a good defense, like there's tons of questions marked. I know Robert Saleh's back, and that's someone they really like to have back. But I don't know if it's going to be the same team that we've seen the last couple of years. So that's your Seahawks Squad Show. Really appreciate you guys hanging out with us today. Any last words from you two? Anything you wanted to get in there that we didn't?
Let's look. I'm just gonna look. I've always got one last thing to say.
Sure,
here.
Let's go, Corbin.
Tomorrow night, the two players you need to watch the most closely are undrafted rookie defensive linemen. Jared Ivey, who was an incredibly impressive interview. You can watch that on a Locked On Seahawks show that was on Wednesday night. And the dude just keeps showing up. And J.R. Singleton, the other one from Iowa State, those two guys, they are becoming a symbiotic unit. And it's been really fun to watch. I could see them give Kansas City a lot of fits when they get to their second stringers in the game tomorrow night. So
all right,
watch those two big guys.
Turbo, who you watch tomorrow?
Who am I watching tomorrow?
Yeah.
Same guys I've been watching. You know what I'm saying? Robbie Oots.
Yeah.
You want to see more of it, and Gray Zabel. Those are the two guys right now. They got the most as far as young players on offense. You know, they've got some expectation, man. So I'm continuing to watch those guys.
Yep. I'm watching Torrey Horton. I want to see him take that step up and really kind of claim that third wide receiver spot for his own, which I think he can.
He's already won it.
Okay, great. Thanks, Corbin. All right, guys. Really appreciate you hanging out with us today. Mention the comments who you guys think the division 1, 2, 3, 4 looks like. Really tons of good stuff on this episode today. If you missed any of it, please check it out on the podcast, and you can rewind and watch it on the YouTube, on the Locked On Seahawks YouTube channel later as well. Please like the video if you haven't already. It helps us a ton. The YouTube algorithm defeat that. And then we'll talk to you guys after the game tomorrow night. Corbin, enjoy it. I know you won't be able to be with us tomorrow, but
I'll be donning a bright suit and I'll be in the locker room. Good.
Yes, sir. We'll get you next week. Turbo, we'll talk to you tomorrow. Sound good, guys?
All right, guys.
All right. Peace out. Good stuff. Go Hawks. We'll talk to you guys.